Hello, everyone, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Allie Libb, and I would like to welcome you to today's ReadyTalk webinar, which is the third in our Future of Work series, titled How to Use Technology to Drive Your Organization's Success. ReadyTalk is pleased to bring you this six-part webinar series, which is designed to provide you with an inside look at the state of today's business environment and how key components are adapting to technology. Experts in office design, IT infrastructure, workplace process, and training will share their expertise and experience and provide you with key takeaways from each session. So before we get started today, I'd just like to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We will be recording this webinar, and a copy of today's slides will be emailed to you after the event. Also, if you have questions during today's session, please feel free to submit them using the chat feature that's located at the bottom left of your screen. If you'd like to contribute to the social conversation surrounding this event or our series, please use the hashtag FOWWS, which stands for Future of Work Webinar Series. So with that, I am pleased to introduce our speaker today, Leif Hartwig. Leif is a seasoned entrepreneur who spent his career helping small businesses accelerate growth and revenues. He founded Bolstay to continue doing exactly that, to develop an easy-to-use tool to help today's entrepreneurs, small businesses, and teams within larger organizations quickly increase productivity and efficiency. He's traveled to over 70 cities in the United States and Canada, coached 3,000 businesses and over 10,000 participants. He's also authored several copyrighted educational programs and has taught postgraduate investment courses at the University of Arizona for nearly a decade. He's also volunteered as the chairman of the board for the American Heart Association in Tucson, Arizona, and has sat on several foundation boards, including the Tucson Medical Association. So with that, Leif, I am pleased to turn it over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, and thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to this talk. And I apologize about the audio difficulties that we had beyond our control. But today is going to be a phenomenal hour, a little less than that right now. And how I'd like to focus this is I always believe in my talks that we want you all to get a lot of takeaways. In other words, things that you can actually use in your business. And although I'm the founder and CEO of Bolstay, we'd love to have you take a look at us. Really, this hour is all about you and how we go about helping you move your businesses into this new era of technology that is coming to us at warp speed right now. The title of the program is How to Use Technology to Drive Business Success. And I know you all have been doing that in your businesses for years probably, but things are changing so quickly right now. So what I'd like to talk about is, as opposed to talking to myself a lot, but maybe I should just give you a little background so that you know who's speaking and is there some kind of credibility here from me. As was mentioned in the introduction, I spent over a decade teaching small, medium, and large businesses to grow and had some great success. With companies like State Farm and Prudential and Nationwide, we added over $1 billion, in some cases over $3 billion to top-line revenues by helping them become more efficient, helping entrepreneurs grow, but also their teams communicate and collaborate better to make all that happen. And while I was doing that, I had identified really some common pain points we were seeing with everybody, and I've spent the last 7 years, believe it or not, the last 7 years developing a technology that can fit best in the workplace to help businesses grow. I think that might be refreshing for all of you listening out there, is not just a technology that's usable or an app that's a great piece of software, but truly something that was designed for business people by a business person that has great value, which means you got to have a great ROI. You have to be able to track things, and is this valuable or not? So over the past 7 years, I saw a lot of things happening in the industry, and it's just bursting today with activity. What I found through that whole process is most likely, you all have a mess. on your hands. And let's explore that just a little bit right now. I've talked to CEOs and department heads and especially the technology leaders of companies, and skeptically, when I sit down across the table with them, they look at me and I know what they're thinking. What the heck do you have? How can you help us out? And it's a great question because most likely you've been bombarded by 100 companies probably a day, with potential solutions and things that you think might help. And so what is the problem? It's so complex out there. It has to do with outdated technology that's over 20 years old. I mean, email's over 20 years old. My guess is some of you are using SharePoint and even Lotus Notes, believe it or not, that was begun in 1989. So the technology that permeates enterprises is vast, and the consequences of using all this old technology is it just wasn't designed for today's business to be on the cloud. It's kind of a fix-it technique you've all been going through. And what are the consequences? The second bullet point on this slide, the consequences of the problem has been incredibly difficult for businesses. We're seeing with email alone a decrease in productivity as much as 25%. So some of the independent surveys like the McKinsey studies, and there was a new one out by the Wall Street Journal just in this last week. We put out a study, Bose put out a study a few weeks ago and published it, and we found that 75% of employees are not happy with their jobs. And we happen to think it's not their jobs they're unhappy with or the companies, it's how they're doing it. And when they have to spend a couple hours a day on emails, and where can I find this, what can I do? You might have 200 emails a day and 1,000 in the hopper you haven't gotten to, and spam and all the other things that come up from that. It really takes away from their focus in business. In fact, in my consulting and coaching programs, we said when you're disturbed from your job, it takes you 10 or 15 minutes to get your mind back in it. And so are people really engaged anytime during the day with these things that are bugging? So what is the result of this? I don't like to just describe problems. I like to see if there's a way to fix it. But truly, we need to identify the problem again and come up with, talk about some of the solutions that have happened, what you're all working with, and then where is the market going? And behind the scenes in our industry and our niche, we're seeing lots of things you guys aren't seeing right now, probably. So let's talk about that a little bit. Also, what I would love is I have access to the chat screen that's on here. And although all of you are muted at the moment, I would love if you need clarification on an issue that I'm speaking about, if you have questions. I'm going to pose a couple questions as well throughout this next hour or so, and I'd like to get your feedback if experiencing some of these things, so it'd be really helpful for me to use that chat feature. So here's what we're going to be exploring together: the problem with current technologies, and I would tell you, all of you that are listening here, you probably needed to hear this speech, or you've been looking for someone like us a year before you found us. You're well aware of the issues that are out there. And I think you've been working really hard to solve those issues. So what we're going to be talking about really in 3 different sections here is the email or communication overload, and it's not just email, it's evolved into chat and texting and lots of other different things. We're going to talk about unevolved software, and that is something that you're taking for granted and probably have been using for a number of years. And then a new thing, actually it's not too new. When we look at Dropbox, for instance, in the app chaos, Dropbox is already 8 years old. I mean, most of you have newer cars than that. So we're finding that all of these areas are contributing to the problem, not really solving it now, even though we thought we were. So let's start at the top real quickly. I think we all understand email. Pretty much everybody hates it these days. It's full of spam. You've got everybody CCing everybody else. It clutters up your email. We've got non-business communications along with business communications, invites to things that we don't need to go to. And as we said, I think in the Wall Street Journal article, they said, many people are getting between 100 and 200 emails a day. In your businesses, I know in ours, we see people taking roller bags home with them down the elevator at night just to complete their work. So quality of life has been really affected. And remember, it wasn't always that issue, because when email replaced snail mail, it was a big deal. We got things fast and in real time, but it's evolved now into something that is a cornerstone of everybody's business communications, yet it's extremely outdated and causing more problems now than perhaps it's solving. The second area, and I would like to get some feedback on chatting, is the unevolved, I'm sorry, I think we're not in the right place with the slides. We're on this slide right now? Okay, we're still on this overview. So the unevolved software that I'd like to talk about, if you guys could chat me, is anybody experiencing or are using SharePoint or Lotus Notes or any technology that you've been using for over 10 years that's out there? I'd like to see a yes or yep or that kind of thing. We really found that SharePoint alone is a $2 billion revenue business for Microsoft on an annual basis. However, there are some definite issues with that. And then of course with the app chaos that's going out there, so many choices. So yeah, let's go to the next slide, Emily. I think you had me on the right side with the email overload. So I think everybody understands email overload. The last point in this that a lot of businesses aren't recognizing is you are truly wasting in these poor communications 25% loss in productivity. Think about that for a minute. A $40,000 average employee that's wasting 25% of their time, that's $10,000 per employee that's costing your business. Now, just all of you have different sized businesses from small to very large. Just multiply the number of people in your businesses that is costing you, and I think you're going to come up with a really big number. And the solutions are so much less expensive. Okay, let's move to the next slide, Emily. Unevolved software. So I checked this right before the meeting here and found that Lotus Notes came out in 1989. So over 25 years old with that. SharePoint came out in 2001. They just haven't come up today with business needs, not only from functionality, but also from a UI standpoint. People are used to going to Facebook and LinkedIn and so many of the other programs that are out there, and so it really isn't satisfying their needs. We find extremely high costs, millions and millions of dollars by individual companies, not to mention the onboarding and training, and the result is there's still low participation because it's too complex for today. So difficult to implement and complex. And again, any of those of you in the audience today that are using those technologies, that I'm sure there's a validation with that as well. And each day at Bolst, we're talking to customers that are using that, and they are searching for something like us or some other possibilities to make that happen. The next is the app chaos. Now, this being a technical group of people, you all have really helped bring in this disruptive technology, and I say disruptive in a real good word to start out here, that you're always looking for solutions that can solve your problems. So when you had email and there was difficulty with note-taking, you got Evernote, and you needed project management, so you signed up to Basecamp. People were on the cloud, so you needed to make sure that they could have their correspondence easily taken whether they're home or off-site or doing all those things. So you've assembled all these components, and now when you want to scale those to your company, what's happening? Well, first of all, you have to decide what you're going to get. So we know we have email. We know we might have some some communication inside your company, whether that's SharePoint or your own proprietary things. And now you have all of these little fix-it solutions. And over the course of the last 5, 10, 20 years, you've assembled this mess of stuff. And people, they don't interact with each other. It's confusing. If you're not on any of these technologies, how do you buy for all your employees, get them on, choose the right thing for your organization, and put them all together and scale to 25, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people? So it's become overwhelming. So if you are all nodding your head right now, I think we're in the right place, that we've described the problem and the issue that may never have been brought to the surface before this talk today. Because what we found when we talk to people, they're just unhappy and they don't really know why. And it's because, like anything in life, whether personally or professionally, we evolve over a period of time until the pain point gets so high, and then we wake up and say, we really don't want to be here anymore. So in our industry, we've come up, there's been companies like ours, like Bolst, that have tried to fix this mess. Okay? And if I were in an audience right now speaking to you and I would say, hey, do we have a mess on our hands? And I would be nodding my head up and down, I would probably get 90 to 100% of you nodding your heads up and down saying, yeah, this makes sense. And when we bring it to the surface, sometimes it even becomes more painful. So the disruptive technology that we've had in the past is truly not what business wants. The last thing in the world a business wants is something disruptive. Okay? What they want is something pragmatic, usable, low cost, high ROI, happy employees. And if we go on to happy employees, balance of life, so that they're not having to take their work home and they can enjoy their lives like culture used to do before all this kind of came in there. The result is right now you have a mess on your hands. I think that's agreeable with everyone. So now how do we fix it? And so I want to give you a visual here on my talk, and this slide probably better than any pulls it all together, that if we said email came out many years ago, and then mostly larger enterprise companies that were able to afford these larger technologies like SharePoint and Lotus Notes, wow, they were able to at least satisfy some people with their project management and some communications. And then as all business does, when they see a hole in what's happening, they start to develop products from a need standpoint. So when people started working off-site, gosh, they needed a way to access files that they didn't have on a hard drive or maybe had on their desktop computer. So Dropbox came up and was able to address that need. Basecamp, we need project management, both from people on-site and off-site, and we can't all meet in the conference room anymore, so Basecamp came up. And then there was note-taking, and then you can see all the rest of them that are there, that as you started to assemble all the pieces, my guess is for most of you is that you have the pieces. You got all the pieces. You've combined email and the next column of the non-evolved software, and then you put together these other things, and my gosh, now they don't talk to each other, and nobody's on the same page. In fact, I've asked hundreds of businesses this. Yes?
This is Allie. I just wanted to jump in here. So Miriam had chatted into, while you were moving to this next slide, that one of the problems that they face too is that not every staff member is always at the same technology level. So as you're kind of going through this next phase here of the presentation, could you address a little bit of that as well?
Absolutely, and that is a huge issue. And we were going to move to that, but let's talk about that right now, because so if you would listen to the Silicon Valley guys, and we're based in Scottsdale, Arizona, you would think everybody is a high-tech person. It's the exact opposite. I would say 80 to 90% of the workforce is not high-tech. They're low to medium. And when we look at the generational lines, what we see is the workforce is divided into thirds right now. We have baby boomers, I would say mostly low tech, maybe some medium tech, Gen Xers, and millennials. And don't think millennials are super high tech. They grew up with it, but it doesn't mean they're high tech. And so the problem with some of the old technologies, and I'm glad you brought it up, is they were made for the more sophisticated technology people. So what we believe in our company, and we've worked extremely hard on this, is the technology has to be insanely easy to use. And my little joke is, not so easy a child can do it, because children know how to do this. It's got to be so easy a baby boomer can do it. Okay? So I think, again, if you're nodding your heads, we understand the dynamics of the workforce. And when we're going out to companies, we found that they're not using all of these tools we've mentioned here. They're just using a few. And the companies are trying to figure out this complex matrix of what do we do and where do we go, and then how can it be easy to use. So on top of easy to use, it's got to be easy selection. So if you look at all these different apps, there's 1,000 of them that compete with each other in here. So which project management tool do you use? Which storage do you use? Do you use it like an outdated Google Apps or a Microsoft 365 that are more menu driven and don't bring people all together? So thank you, Allie, for bringing that up, that ease of use has got to be a major component in this puzzle that we put together. And there's many more. You have to have all the right tools that are combining together. And you have to have everybody connected in a way that's meaningful. So you don't want the whole company just connected. You want to have smaller groups that are connecting together. Let's say, for instance, if you're in a conference room with 5 people, you want that very secure with those people that are speaking in those smaller groups. On the other hand, you might want the whole division in another kind of conference room. And yet, if you develop 50 different groups, how in the heck do you see what's going on with everybody? So the problem of how do you tie all these things together in one easy business intelligence type fashion? We're going to solve that problem for you in the next couple minutes. And I think we have solved it, but it's taken 7 years for us to do it and to watch the evolution of what's happening in the public. So what I'd like to do is let's talk about the 2 different types of solutions that are being offered in the marketplace today. And I think each has its place. So there's been a huge, at least in the industry, and we're finding outside the industry, maybe not as much, but there's one company that says they've been around for a couple years, actually been around for 7 or 8, trying to get this model right. And I think that's a good thing. And so the first category is what we call app aggregators. Okay, and everybody knows in our industry that we want to move away from email. We don't want to integrate it, if at all possible, into our new kind of communications, because that's going to compound the problem too. Just like all the apps out there, it was a good idea at first, but now it's creating more chaos than it is clarity. Okay, so the aggregators will take all the apps that you're currently using and we'll put them in an interface. Okay, my company, for instance, we think we're the next generation beyond that, and that we don't combine apps. We just give you all the functionality at once, so when people sign on, they're all connected with all the functionality at once. Let's go to the next slide, Emily. Okay, so we use Slack, but there's others out there. There's a bunch of others out there. They just probably have the biggest name and just have a ton of money. And where does Slack fit in your organization? Because in some of your organizations, even though we compete against them, they might be the best solution for a certain group of people. And typically it's the higher tech people, those guys and gals that love disruptive technology and they're used to using certain functionality. And so what aggregators do, as opposed to opening all this different technology in your browser across tabs across the top, what they do is you're allowed to put those in what they call channels within their user interface. And you would just simply click on a channel and open that up and invite whoever you want into that functionality. interesting concept, and again, I've talked to some tech guys that seem to really like it a lot. The problem with aggregators is that you still have to select all those things and go through the selection process. And as opposed to maybe being in a conference room where you're sharing all these tools as you need them, in this concept with aggregators, you're actually inviting people, if you can imagine in your office, you're walking over to a filing cabinet and inviting someone to share, open it up and share a file with somebody. Okay, you're not really in a project doing that. And so you're taking notes, and now you want to invite someone into the functionality. And so although it was a nice interim step, how do you scale that sucker? How do you get everybody remembering passwords to all be on the same technology and then to go to the different functionality as opposed to being in a group and then sharing within the group? So although we think it's a nice interim step, and certainly for the people that demand specialty tools within their area of expertise, it's a good solution. But for the whole of company, we think, and we're seeing some feedback now, it's been in the press a lot lately, that a lot of the feedback, in fact, I saw a funny article the other day, I'm breaking up with you, Slack, and it just talked about that it was starting to be more of a time waster than it was a time saver. And so, again, use these types of things for what is best for your business. And if somebody's listening out there that has a high-tech group, that's all you do is correspond in there and not with the rest of the company, you need to take a serious look at Slack. I think they might be able to help. For the rest of you that are looking for solutions for the entire company, I think the aggregators might, in the long run, might be a more not as effective solution as you might see in what our space is as a business operating system. Okay, so the second solution that we see out there is really an upgrade of some of the old technology that hasn't evolved, combined with the new technology with apps. Okay, so kind of the best of both worlds. You're getting what some of your folks are used to using from even back for 20 years, but you're also getting what is being demanded, and I think rightly so, as tools that will enhance your business in this new world. And so what we've done at Bolst is we've designed this from the bottom up as a communication and collaboration system for your company, for divisions, for individual groups, and for one-on-ones with other people, all to be inclusive. So, for instance, if a business were to, the administrator says, yeah, we want to use Bolst, you're invited, the administrator sends out an email to everyone, they click on it, they insert a password, and you're all connected. And then you open what we call bolsters, which are like conference rooms in a way, that as opposed to inviting someone to the technology, you're working like you would normally work. You invite someone into a group, which we call a bolster, and we love that name, bolster, to enhance, to grow, to build, to better yourself. So when you come into a bolster, all of the technology that you would typically use in individual apps is there for your access. So you can share files. You can have dialogues, whether that's group dialogues or individuals with chats. You can, if you're in different locations, you can do things like share your screen. In our new version, I have my CTO here in case you want to get to more detail, but we're integrating Bolst within the next 4 weeks with Outlook products. Like you'll be able to sync your calendars with Outlook, with Google, and with Apple. You'll be able to sync your contacts to be able to communicate with them. Although we will not bring in email because we think in the long term that's not a good thing because people will be using email less and less. We're finding with the companies that use us very robustly, they're cutting their internal emails down by 70 or 80%. It's huge. Now on top of it, we decided that in business people will tell you anything and not deliver. And so again, in our next version in just a few weeks, we're going to give you metrics to show the administrator If they're using this site, we'll talk to you individually about this, but how can you quantify time savings and productivity? And we have great analytics that will do just that and show you how much time you're saving on email, getting on the same page, project management, pulling everybody together with different calendars. It's pretty phenomenal. So, but it's designed, to the earlier question out here, this was designed to be insanely easy to use. So the training on this is almost nil. Might take you 10 or 15 minutes to get it, but if you use Facebook or LinkedIn, it's that easy. And so we think that is incredibly important for businesses as a whole, yet we wanted to make sure that the tools were there even for the highest level technology people, that they would receive value from those. We have task management, for instance, where you can assign tasks and put those things on the calendar. So anything you could do in a physical conference room that you would need to have access to, whether that was files or documents or chats or doing tasks or comparing calendars, all can be done in Bolst. So again, it may not be the solution for everyone, but on either a small business or a large-scale business, it truly gets everyone on the same page, which rarely can you do. And I'm just being reminded by my assistant that's in here, don't forget to talk about the mobility, because we think that how I devised Bolst in the first place 7 years ago is I was traveling 45 some weeks a year, and I was in airports, and this was before Dropbox became really even popular, but I saw people checking their emails. And I said, you know what? This is the future. People want to work on-site and off-site. There's no replacement for on-site, I don't think. But as people need to communicate with people off-site, so it's got to have great mobile technology, which we have as well, and which ties all of our desktop app together with a mobile app and allows you to check in and do whatever you need to do on that. Thanks, Emily, for mentioning that. But so if you needed to bet the farm on a couple things, I think you need to do it on how do we become more efficient with our communications. And if the current system is broken, can't be fixed, we don't think. So you're going to have to move to something that is more reliable, easy to use, low cost, which we are also very competitive and cost-wise, probably 10% of what it would cost for you to accumulate all these things together in a Slack or by yourself, and then make it usable for everybody. My goal and dream in life is to help people live better lives and help companies grow. And I think it's important that we not only talk about how to use technology and from a business standpoint, but how can we better the work experience with individuals. And so our company is based on integrity, character, high values, just as all your companies are. So you know what I'd like to do is, if I can, if it makes sense, we can either open it up to questions, but I'd like to introduce Andrew Bourne, which is our CTO, and I'd like him to mention a few technology things that might make sense, and because he comes from your world more than my executive side of things. But Andrew, if you want to introduce yourself, and I know you have a few comments you'd like to make.
Yeah, thanks, Leif. Hi, this is Andrew Bourne, and I am a full 10 days into the CTO position here at Bolst, so I'm fully immersed. But one of the things that I did want to relate to you, I was just down talking to a group at Apple, and I want to relate the same story to you that I related to them. In my previous position, I was building a suite of SaaS products for global markets for some of the largest companies in the world. And at any one time, I had team members. I had 3 different locations in the U.S. I had a group in Costa Rica and a group in Cebu, Philippines, and also in Glasgow. And at any one time on my desktop, I could have open, besides email, Google Hangouts, Google Drive, Skype, GoToMeeting, WebEx, and another chat. So the reason I relate that is I think there's probably people in the audience who are probably in that same position and recognize how unwieldy it is to manage content across all of these products. And I can tell you from experience that we missed some customer expectations, and we probably lost, I would guess, 20% of our productivity just searching for content across those teams and syncing up the content. And I think that's a huge challenge that I saw not only in our company, but in working with the companies that were our customers. Having them, collaborating with them was a huge challenge also, and I saw it within their teams. So I think there's probably people out there that are probably shaking their heads and going, yep, I recognize that situation completely. The other one is the email problem. You know, there was nothing more frustrating for me leading a team than getting an email in the morning that had 43 emails attached to it with spreadsheets and screenshots and, you know, a lot of content. And I would literally spend a couple hours going through that email and finally get to the realization that what they were asking me for was, you know, can I go to lunch on Thursday, or, you know, do you like the color yellow in that particular product? So probably folks are I guess they're shaking their heads in agreement with that one also. And that's hugely frustrating. So that's one of the things that attracted me to Bolst was just that, having lived through that problem and seeing the solution that they've designed, you know, a space where you can get rid of all of that email clutter and get rid of spam and use a technology to really increase productivity in your day. You know, most information technology workers, people that are working on computers, lose somewhere between 15 and 25% of their productivity either searching for or recreating content. And I lived in that world. And so to have something that puts all that content in one place that I can share across people without using email, and I can share with my teams, and I can see that activity. And, you know, having worked with teams that are in different time zones and different parts of the world, that adds another dimension to that problem. So that's just a quick real-world story of what attracted me to Bolst. So some interesting things coming up on the roadmap. The product that you've seen here that's represented is our current product, and we have a new product that's going to be released next month, our 3.0 platform. And I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. You know, from a usability standpoint, there's a bold new interface that folks will enjoy, as well as some really new powerful features such as the ability to share a screen or do some voice over IP chat within the Bolster or leave a video voicemail. Also, we're going to release a new mobile product. So I know I saw some chatter about, well, I don't want to work, you know, 24/7, and I think that's where our workforce is today. Is we want to be connected, but we want to have the flexibility to work off-site and be able to respond to things and know what do I need, what content do I need to respond to, and what is noise. And so if you're dealing with a 2-hour email problem every day, you know, then you're really looking at a 10-hour plus day just getting into your work. So figuring out how to get rid of all that email clutter, just the spam and the noise, and getting the noise out of the room makes you more productive, allows you to spend more productive hours and then move on to doing other things in your life, right? So that's, like Leif said, he's a big believer in that work-life balance, and this product allows you to do that. There's another big piece that I want to touch on, and I don't know how much time we have, but we have something that you won't see in any of these other products, which is a deep dive into business intelligence and analytics. So what do I mean by that? I don't mean just, hey, here's a couple of metrics, but some things that will help you create more velocity in your teams and collaborate better. So understanding how teams work together better, understanding how to get them more engaged in the project you're working on, the product you're developing, maybe you're doing a new hire or something. Getting that full engagement from that team and understanding how your team's engaged, those things come from the analytics suite that we'll be putting out. And so that'll add to your understanding of how to make your teams more productive utilizing technology. And then the ability to bring in outside people into those meeting areas like customers and things like that, using analytics to understand how to engage better with your customers. That's something that we can all rally around, I think. So those are some of the things from an analytics perspective that we will be releasing out to help you be better and more productive with your teams. So those are kind of some
Andrew,
looks into the. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
This is Allie. One of the questions that I know Leif and I talked about, or one of the issues I think that we talked about prior to this webinar was the idea that a lot of times, whether it's a business operating system or it's an aggregator, or people are still trying to figure out how to use all these different apps to at least communicate with one another. One of the problems I think that comes up a lot, and I think Miriam mentioned this earlier too, is that not a lot of people are necessarily technologically savvy, but they also, whether it's someone that's coming into the workforce or it's someone that has a few years under their belt, people may be resigned to the technologies that they're using. So they may be just comfortable with using Outlook, and they may be comfortable with using, Gmail or Dropbox or whatever it is, and they think that the way that they're doing things is okay for now, or they're comfortable with that. So how do you, from a CTO or technology perspective, how do you get people on board to adopt these new kinds of technologies, no matter what it is?
That's a great question. So let's talk about the problem for a second. When you look at the apps that we're using, and I think the average business uses something like 12 apps or something like that, and if you look at the evolution of those apps, they're getting more and more complex and more complicated as they evolve. So when we look at the workforce and you look at folks that have a job to do, the last thing they really want to do is learn another app and learn another complexity and try and figure out how to integrate that into what they're doing. So the way forward there, if we think about it and we kind of look away from the screen and not be so fixated on a particular app, is we want apps to come to us. We don't want to have to go to apps. And what I mean by that is we don't need apps. We need functionality within apps. So Bolz talks about itself being the anti-app company. We want a business operating system or a collaborative space where, and you'll see this, and this is another look into the roadmap of the product, so I'm peeling off the covers a little bit. When you create that bolster or that channel, there's a couple of things that are going to happen there. One is you're in a vertical, so you're a CPA firm or you're a construction firm, or maybe you're in some kind of consulting. And so we'll configure around that vertical that you're in. But within that bolster, there's a job that you have to do, right? So maybe and these jobs can be common things that go across all organizations, like I have to hire a new employee, or I have to do a budget. A budget's a good one because everybody understands that. So when we configure those bolsters, we want to configure it around the job that you're doing. So we may say, what is the job you're doing? Well, I'm creating a budget. And so using the intelligence of the system to pre-configure that bolster with who's got to be involved in the conversation, what kind of documents do we need to pre-configure? Are there any notes that we bring in from other things? So using intelligence going forward to help pre-configure a lot of those things, so you don't have to go in and be real technologically savvy. You can say, this is just the job I have to do. Boom, everything comes to you, as opposed to you going out and reaching all those pieces and parts.
Yeah, Andrew, I liked what you said about the anti-app company. I think if you're looking at this holistically, you're saying this is overwhelming. There's too many pieces. We don't want to be one more thing. We want to be 12 less things. And that's really where Bolz comes in. And that's because we understand business. We understand people. I think not only did I bring 10,000 people through my program, I profiled them all. So we know how kind of they think and what they need, and we've watched them work and talked about their family lives and everything else over a decade. And so this Bolz that you're seeing is a result of our understanding businesses from the bottom up and what they need and how they work. And I had a really smart guy. He was an ex-director of law at Microsoft. And when he looked at our product, he said, I get it. He said, if you were to buy a car today, it does everything you want. The windshield wipers come on automatically. The lights do. There's Bluetooth. I've got backup screens. I have all these things. And it's the way a car should be today. He said, Boast, if you were to design a communication systems from the bottom up for modern businesses, it would be Boast. And I was so pleased to hear that he got it, that we designed this to help you. And our mission statement in the company is not to build the best software, although we will, and we do have that. It's to help businesses grow. And when you have a focus on helping people and businesses, your software turns out different. It's not just something that you use. It's something that it's almost a partnership with your business to help it grow and to help your employees and to help your projects and all those things that businesses truly are. And so kind of in summary, I think we're coming close to our end here, and we're certainly going to be around for as long as you need us to answer questions. But I think we started at the beginning saying we've got a mess here. We defined what it was, and then all of a sudden I think most of you are saying, holy cow, he's right. How do we fix it? And that although, as Allie, you said, there's some people out there that the pain point might not be super high. So we know that at some point in the future, you're going to move into this new world. And it's going to require a change. Most of us from the industry know that email will probably go the same way that voicemail went years ago, that everybody was using it, and now they've aggregated to texting and other things. So email will always be there, but wouldn't it be better to have a business tool where there was no spam, no difficulty in finding old correspondence, no difficulty at figuring out what did I name that file because it's readily accessible. So the alternatives now that you have are, I believe, would either be aggregators or staying with what you got, certainly a viable alternative for some of you out there. Going with an aggregator if you're high tech and need some real specifics. But we think even in that arena, the need for communication, as Andrew said, in specific work jobs and projects and then an overview of the company to all be on the same page, something needs to be done. And in our opinion, either you're going to use Boast or you're going to use something like it in the years to come, and that's a reality that I think we need to face in business. Anything you wanted to add, Andrew?
No, that's good.
Allie, I think we're kind of done with the presentation, but we'd love to open it up to questions if there are any of those, and if not, we just had a great time here today.
Great, so did we. One question, it's not really a question more so than this idea that I'm finding it interesting, that this idea that email is, you said it will be there, but it could also, go by the wayside. And I think that that's interesting. I mean, as someone that communicates via email every day, pretty much all day long, whether that's, personal or business, it's something that I think most people have come to rely on, even though there is so much spam and there is so much noise that we're getting from all these different companies that we may have signed up for at some point, or, third party through someone else and things like that. Like, how do you see that going? How do you see
it's fascinating because Andrew will throw out the statistic of how much email is going on every minute, but social community, whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter or the rest, multiple exceeds email today. And so the social community way of corresponding is becoming more and more so. Although it creates a lot of problems, especially in businesses with security and the things that are being shared outside the platform, when you go on to Boast and you start using a chat, our mobile solution, especially in the next couple of weeks, will actually look kind of like email in a way from a user interface standpoint. But wouldn't it be nice if all your business correspondence could come through like a business texting, but you'd also have social content as well, and that would be inside your business with history and everything else versus merging texting together with personally in business as well as your emails that you're doing. So I think we didn't talk about security, which is number one on our list. We talked more about the efficiencies and getting greater ROI and more productivity, but there's so much more in this, and certainly there's companies out there now, the email campaigns. I don't know about all of you, but I'm getting hit up every day with sales things, and it's mostly these people I've hooked up with at LinkedIn, and the spam is just incredible. There is no spam on Boast. No spam, because anybody that you're corresponding with, you've invited in. Okay, so once you start using Boast, especially internally, the external customers, they're still going to email you, but internally, you're going to find that people have gravitated very quickly away. And one of the things that we did is we understood that not only did you want an intranet on your operating system, but you'd want to correspond with those people outside your company in a secure business manner. So when you do that, when you open a Bolster and invite them in, they come in for free. No cost for them to come in and start utilizing a Bolster. Now, if they want to use it on their own and expand it into their company, there's a cost, just like Dropbox would have upgrades for them. But particular customers you can invite in, and anybody really, any business peers, into the business platform, the BOSS system, and start communicating in that way. I don't know if that answers your question about email, but I think holistically, email is not going to go away overnight. But when people start utilizing Boast and seeing the power of it, I know I was in a real estate closure on my own, and they were all emailing, and I should have invited them into Bolster because there was 2 agents, buyers, sellers, mortgage people, lawyers, everybody that needed to correspond, and I was wasting so much time by not having them all in one group. So when you start utilizing this, the time savings, the ease of use, the fun that you're having with this, of everybody being on the same page is way, way beyond any email experience you've been having. But Allie, did that answer your question about email? I'm not sure I was as specific as you wanted, but did I answer that?
Yeah, definitely. So it does look like we're about out of time for today, but Leif, I want to thank you for a great presentation. Emily, thank you for helping us put this all together. And Andrew, thank you for your insights from the technology perspective. I really appreciate it, and I know the audience did too. Yeah. So before we go, I'd just like to remind everyone.
We found through the chat. One more thing, Allie. We
Sure.
we saw that there's some people that have chatted and want demos. If you could go to our last slide, and it just gives at bolst.com, you can connect through us there. My email is lhartwig@bolst.com, and so people can request that there. And we would be glad. What I'll do is just put our business development person on, and they can walk through a 15-minute demo. And actually, not only are we implementing trials in businesses, but you would not believe the response we've had. We're in discussions with Salesforce.com. We're leading into discussions with Cisco. We're leading in with GoDaddy, with really companies all over the country that are saying, wow, we need this. Not only do we need it as a company, but we need it for our customers. So the impact we're seeing, and we just launched out a beta in January of this year. So over just the last couple months, I think everybody's seeing that we are the product of choice right now. But we'd be glad to do demos with anybody that would like to request those. Affordability. Yeah, there was a question on affordability too. We're only $10 a person, and you can imagine if you're aggregating these apps together and have 10 apps, it's going to be $100 to $200 alone. So It's extremely affordable. If you have SharePoint, obviously we're going to blow them away. There's no way that they can compete on a cost standpoint. And from a service, because we do a lot of training, there's no people you need on site for this product. It really runs itself. So affordability is extremely competitive in that arena. Was there any other questions?
Okay.
I think that answered those questions that they were asking.
Yeah, great. So just as we wrap up here, I just want to remind everyone that we'll be emailing you a link to the recording today, along with a link to download the presentation if you're interested. And then as you leave the webinar, we'd love to get your feedback. So we have a short survey there. So if you could fill that out as you exit, that would be greatly appreciated. So again, Leif, I want to thank you for a great presentation, and I want to thank you and your audience, or your staff, Andrew, especially for sharing your expertise with our audience today. So that ends today's webinar. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.